Sundermeier, the president of government systems at Clear Systems. Bill's been with Clear Systems for over 16 years and has been serving as the president of Clear's government systems since about April of 2006. He started his career in Tektronix, has held various engineering and management positions in high-tech type companies in the Portland area, and has recently graduated from Harvard's Advanced Management Program, where he expanded his understanding, knowledge about leadership and strategic application of it. So we look forward to hearing more about that this evening. I'll let Bill tell us about his company, and please let's welcome Bill Sundermeier. Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce Tom Milligan, who's my executive officer. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, fighter pilot, served 2 tours of Vietnam. So he's my high-tech approach to flipping slides tonight. Anyway, FLIR Systems, infrared. Everybody as geeky as me know what infrared's all about. Let me tell you just a little bit. This happens to be a Boeing A380. Big, huge Boeing aircraft, shot in high-definition infrared. And what infrared does is it sees heat. Heat works just like light. Infrared, beyond the red light. William Herschel, back in 1800, eventually looking at one of those cool little prisms, you put it out there, and you see the sun, you see a little prism. Happen to notice that if you put a thermometer beyond the red, thermometer increases in temperature. Heat is nothing more than just another waveform of light. It behaves just like light, but a slower wavelength of light. So we can create, like CCD cameras, chips that look at infrared. So this photo, you can actually see all the little spars, the wings, how hot the engines get. Completely different look in the world than what you would see with the visible camera. I brought a little commercial camera around, not high definition in any way. It's a 320 by 240 pixel. It's not even close to where your iPhone is today, but it'll give you an idea. Look at your neighbor, look at your friend. Notice if you put it on the floor and you look at your foot and you drag your foot on the floor, that it's so sensitive that it can actually see where you're walking and where you're stepping, the temperature. So, you look here, take a look at it, just pass it around the room while I'm giving the presentation and see what infrared is all about. I won't get into the geekiness of it, of all the different wavelengths, but it was originally invented for heat-seeking missiles in the military. And our business philosophy is going to take those really, really high-end, high-technology concepts and commercialize them. Use them for the advantage of everybody in the world. So this camera is very similar to the one that you see up there. And for the commercial aspects of infrared, so we have 2 businesses. Commercial side of the business and the government side of the business. I run the government side of the business. I wanted you to know both sides. So the heat is used by electricians. They can look at a fuse panel, everybody knows what a fuse panel is, and look for overloaded circuits. They can look for wasted energy in substations. They can look at power lines and see all sorts of wasted energy and fix that. Look at ships, look at buildings. Take something like this home, look where heat is escaping from your windows, where the pipes are covered for winter so they don't freeze. All sorts of other applications are used even for R&D, looking at how hot a circuit board is. So engineers are doing things to figure out how to dissipate heat. So we call those thermography, wherever we're measuring temperature. If you look at that camera, it actually has a little crosshair in it, and it's telling you the temperature of what it's looking at. It can actually do non-contact temperature measurement. So I don't actually have to touch you to know what the temperature is. Or use a thermometer, stick it in your mouth, open up your mouth, and point it in there, and you'll find out what the temperature is instead. So, can't side, we can use it for imaging without the temperature measurement. So for example, in automotive night vision, right now, BMW, Audi, Rolls-Royce, some of the really high-end automobile companies are putting these in. And that particular camera can see 3 times further than your high beams. Not a marketing thing, really can see 3 times further than your high beams. Applications, seeing people at night, seeing deer in the road, better situational awareness can help you out at night tracking. If you're an old guy like me, you start losing your night vision as you get older, it really helps out in that respect as well. Boats, navigation at night. Then you can also do things like facility security, right? If you can see 24/7, see through bushes, great security capability. And it's all done with these, they produce the camera cores that we sell from. My side of the business is really focused on detection and protection for all of government applications around the world. So we're talking about not only military, but Department of Homeland Security, law enforcement, firefighters, SWAT teams, all those folks that keep us safe. Not only do we do infrared, we've branched out into what's called subverting detection. That's chemical, biological, radiation, nuclear, and explosives. So who are we? We're the folks that are out there swiping your bags at TSA, looking for explosives. We plant things in really interesting places to protect Statue of Liberty, the Pentagon, a few other places in case somebody's going to bring in a dirty bomb. We're going to try and find that before it's exploded. Times Square. I can tell you where we have those things, but we're protecting very, very important assets all around the world. Not only for nuclear, but chemical, biological, so we're familiar with anthrax, sarin gas, all those kinds of things we're building detectors for. They're hidden in buildings, monitoring the HVAC systems, looking for bad things in the air. Shut down HVAC systems to control the environment. And then last but not least, we take all those technologies and bring them together into integrated solutions for a full complement. This gives you an idea of where all the infrared systems are being used around the world in different kinds of applications. These are a lot of military applications. A few to point out here, Coast Guard, pretty much all their Coast Guard cutters, their ships, their airplanes, their helicopters all use our infrared equipment for search and rescue. Also drug interdiction. They try and find a lot of drugs coming into the country. It's crazy out there, from fast boats to submarines to you name it, trying to bring drugs into the U.S. And Coast Guard's out there using night vision equipment to see these guys coming into the country. Customs Border Patrol, all sorts of Homeland Defense, and giving our soldiers kind of the edge at night. Really not much happens in a lot of places because we pretty much own the night. On the subverting side, let's give you an idea of the broad brush of chemical sensors. So we got mass spectrometers that are looking, they can give it something, it completely breaks it all the way down to its molecular structure. It can tell you whether or not it's cocaine, or it's C4 explosive, or it's anthrax. So you can just give it a blob of something, and it'll break it all the way down to its molecular components and tell you what it is. And the real key here for the future is that these things are lab-based solutions. You have to take the sample, you take it to the lab, it takes 3 or 4 hours, it takes forever to do it. One of our breakthroughs is we can do it in about 30 seconds with a limited set of things. So we can do a whole narcotics and explosive scan in about 15 seconds. So imagine 2 years from now when they swipe your bag, if you were around one molecule of cocaine, whether it was yours or your roommates or anybody else, they're going to nail you at TSA. they're going to find whether it's cocaine, whether it's meth, or whether it's C4, or whether it's ammonia. You are around a fertilizer. This fertilizer is used in homemade explosives that make IEDs. And they're going to pull you aside and they're going to give you what for. I think our security levels are going to go quite through the roof in the next 2 years. This IBAC is a biological detector, so that's looking for all those nasty things that are out there, all the different kinds of gases and biological things that can make us very, very sick, neurotoxins. It's used in all sorts of government buildings around the world, monitoring the airflow to make sure that nobody's releasing any of this. There are certain subways in the world, because of the sarin release that was in Tokyo, that are using those to monitor the airflow there in case somebody does another release, not only in subways but also airports. So these are proliferating around the world. You can't tell it because they're buried up in these ducts, and they are all wired back into a security center. So they're looking for people doing the wrong thing. Radiological and nuclear detectors. Probably heard of a Geiger counter before. Goes around. Okay. Well, the technology has increased so far now that not only can we know that there's a radiation source, but we can tell you exactly what isotope it is. Why is that important? We're scanning at the airport. We want to know if you've got medical radiation, maybe you just buff some barium in the upper GI, well, you shouldn't be pulled aside and interrogated. We should let you go through. But if you've got a dirty bomb, of course, we want to spend some time with you. So it's really important to know what kind of isotope. And then these explosive detectors, Fido was named after dogs, are still the best ways of detecting explosives out there. But you're probably used to the silly wand when you go to the airport. They use the wand and they put it in this machine. Well, this product here on the left, you can see this guy's holding on to one. Just a simple handheld device. And these are used all over Afghanistan. Basically what they're doing is they're doing spot checks on folks. They're trying to find the bomb makers. So they find somebody that's out there in the field, they swipe his hand, pull him across, they interrogate him, they use that individual to try and work all the way back to the bomb maker. So 2 ways of destroying IEDs out there in the theater. If we know what an IED is, who provides the explosive device, it's throwing a lot of our soldiers over there. Find bomb makers or find the device. We do both. With the infrared equipment, they're eyes down range, trying to find the devices. They're watching at night, when they're trying to bury those things where they shouldn't be burying them. And we're trying to chase and find the bomb makers at the same time. I mentioned integrated systems. So we have a group. For example, we go into a nuclear power plant and install all these capabilities. So we have radar capability, infrared, night vision capability, visible capability, all the chem biological capability, even nuclear at the fences. So in case somebody tries to bring a dirty bomb in to blow up a nuclear power plant, we're there and we can detect those kinds of things. So really, counter-terror is the name of the government systems side of the business. And we do it very well. Not only do it for the U.S., but which is about 50% of our business, but we do the rest of our business internationally, about 50%. Major customers are Europe, Middle East, Asia, so we're pretty well around the world. Probably our biggest claim to fame over the last 5 years is that we won a contract to protect all of our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan with security. So our systems are used 24/7 for night vision and visible capability. On these tall towers, there are 100-meter masts, there are 30-foot masts, not 100-meter, 100-foot masts, and 30-foot masts, and then they go on the back of Humvees and MRAPs, and basically they're out there looking for people doing the wrong thing. So I don't know how many stories I've heard in the last 5 years of how these systems have saved lives, where typical modus operandi over there in Kandahar, Kabul, wherever it is somebody will come up and run up and launch an RPG right into the group and try and blow up a bunch of tents. They just run up, launch something in, and try and run back out. Well, if we can see them day or night coming before they do that, then we can get them before they launch that rocket. So lots of folks. We actually had an Oregon National Guard guy at the airport tackle one of our guys, gave him a big hug because they were out on patrol and they were walking by a vehicle, and the eyes on this were watching them. By the way, the high-end systems can reach out there a good 6 miles and watch what you're doing. 6 miles away, we can watch what you're doing. So they're watching as they do their patrol. Noticed a vehicle was red hot, told them to give it a wide berth. Get on the other side of the street. They got on the other side of the street. The whole vehicle blew completely apart. And if they would have done the same trajectory, these guys would have been certainly not alive today. So they given it a wide berth from the eyes of this, at least saved the lives of 2 of our Oregon National Guard. I can be a little more stories like that. But certainly it's offensive in that if we see guys coming in, we can counter that, as well as just protecting our folks on all the bases. So all the bases, Iraq's pretty much gone now, but all the bases in Afghanistan are covered with these abilities. Okay. Wouldn't be business without talking a little bit about financials. I only put one in, so not to bore you with too much financials. Since 2006, when I took over the organization, I've been with the company for about 17 years. Revenue started at about $250 million, made up to about $700 million, and generated a little over $1 billion in operating profit in the last 6 years. We tend to run at about 30% operating profit, which is fairly good operating profit for any kind of company in the high-tech space. Our model is really different. As I mentioned before, we compete against the Raytheons, the Lockheeds, the Boeings. Their business model is ask the government for money to develop their products. It's all of our taxpayers' dollars going for R&D, develop products. What typically happens when you're using somebody else's money to fund your R&D? You don't like to slow down on that at all, do you? Because what's the incentive to stop? You're getting paid to do it. Okay? And then when you're done, what's the incentive to make something that's cost effective? Because the government at the end of the day is going to pay you your cost plus about 14% profit. So if your cost is high, 14% of something that's high is even more money. So there's no incentive to make products cheap in the military. None whatsoever. We decided to take a different approach, that we could build high technology products for the military and all the rest of these agencies if we did it on our own dime. We made it extremely cost effective. Our products typically have 50 points of gross margin, 50% profitability built in. And then our expenses are on top of that, and we still end up with about 30 points of profit. Companies like Raytheon and Boeing, etc., if you look at their profit margins, they're typically below 10%. So we do very, very well at attacking a space that has a different paradigm for business. And we're developing an awful lot in the Pentagon as an example of how business could be done. But yet, we have this huge infrastructure. Raytheon, I don't know how many people hires hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And they don't want to break that mold because we put a lot of people. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Forest Grove. You know where Forest Grove is? It's not in the weeds by Hag Lake. It's about the only thing that's out there that's worth visiting. Maybe on the way to the wineries if you made it Forest Grove. Then I went to Oregon State University because I was going to be an engineer. And that quickly changed. I worked at Tektronix on the day I turned 16. And then when I got out of college, colleagues went to Northwest Instrument Systems, which was a spin-out. We don't have a lot of spin-outs happening anymore in the old Silicon Forest, which that was still happening. Those were some pretty cool days. They got bought by Cadre Technologies. I got tired of that. They got tired of me. And went to Quality Check Software, which I founded, so I did a little bit of entrepreneurial work. And then this technology, this infrared stuff came about. And I was just enamored with the technology and decided to go to FLIR. And I've been there for 17 years. This business side, I have a wife and a son, Alex, who's going to Val Catholic. I love to ski, and I love to mountain bike, and that's my brace. And you'll see me favoring my left shoulder because 2 weeks ago I had shoulder surgery because I was racing mountain bikes in Arizona, crashed on that lovely bike, and ripped my humerus out of the socket and busted the rotor cuff and ripped all the tendons out. So I might resort to the brace here at any time. So work hard, play hard. Do anything in life, work hard, play hard. Yeah. Something's got to be worth it for all that hard work. You got to go out there and play hard. Okay. So I mentioned there was a lot of years there of being a product manager. What does a product manager do in traditional business? It kind of is the liaison between the customer, the salespeople, and all the engineers. You own the product and that product line. You're responsible for the P&L. You are trying to find ways to grow the profit and loss of that particular product line. You're worried about the inventory, all of its marcom, all of those capabilities. But the crazy thing is, you have all the responsibility and your job's on the line to get that business to grow. But nobody reports to you. Not a soul reports to you. So you have all the responsibility. With no authority. What I found out was that only really good leaders survive in that kind of job. How do you get people to do something if you just can't tell them, we're going to go do this? Right? You have to go out and you have to talk to your customers, you have to talk to the salespeople to find out what's the next cool thing that we need to go do. And then you got to go get all the engineers motivated to go do that. But you can't tell them. They don't report to you. It's a tough job. But I tell you, it builds great leaders. Because if you're successful at doing that, you learn the tricks of how to motivate people without telling them, this is what we're going to do. So I had an MBA student come in, pay 100% of all the education, anything anybody wants to do at FLIR. It's a big thing for us. So any of our folks want to go get an MBA, we pay for it. Go back to school for anything, we pay for it. And he came to me and he said, we had this interesting class, and I want to interview you because I want to know, if you were to talk about your leadership in one word, what would it be? God, nobody's ever asked me that before. Before I tell you what that one word is, afterwards he told me, Andy Grove, founder of Intel, kind of a cool guy, he's done a lot in his life. His word is he's paranoid. Always paranoid. They've had some great years where there was great competition when they pushed on them. But that paranoia, he said, was always driving him forward. Always paranoid. Always be paranoid about competition. Always be paranoid about if you're not getting things done in time. Always paranoid that the business could fail at any moment. So I'll share with you what mine was. I said impatient. My whole life is about being impatient. I think we took the most scenic, crazy route to get here because I didn't want to be on I-5 driving downtown because cars were backed up and I hate lines, I hate traffic, I just hate waiting. I'm an impatient person. come to grips with that. I am. Always impatient about everything. So, I said, you know, I'm not paranoid. I'm not ready to lose it, but I want things to happen now. I don't like to wait. So, it's another person out there that I've grown to admire, and I want to share that with you. That's Dr. Cotter at Harvard Business School. I got to spend some time with, and he wrote a book about urgency. And this kind of characterizes it for me. Everything that you've got to do every single day is about being urgent. You know, life is too short to sit back and relax. Always have a sense of urgency about everything that you do. And that urgency is the business doing well, am I doing well, and how well am I moving forward? The best advice I can give you, you guys have been working your tail off. And I remember when I graduated from school, it's like, wow, I gotta go to work 8-hour day, I get some vacation, this is gonna be great. I chose, though, consciously, in those first 2 years, to work my tail off. That was probably the last thing that you want to hear if you're about ready to graduate, is that you're going to go work your tail off for another couple of years. Why do you need to do that? To set yourself apart. Get yourself one more step up on that ladder ahead of everybody else who just jumped in there. You can do it. It happens. It works that way. Show all your management a sense of urgency. Things that you want to do, move forward, and you will move forward in business faster and faster if you show that sense of urgency. So, go ahead and put those all up there. Why urgency? You know, competition is constant. Somebody is always trying to eat your lunch in business. Don't ever think for a second. Even if you become the CEO of a nonprofit, you are competing for somebody else's money. It's either going to go to your nonprofit or it's going to go to somebody else's nonprofit. Competition exists in every single business. There are people in this business and there are people in that business, and everybody wants to keep their job. Don't think that anybody's like, oh, you know, the market's big enough and we can all live happily together. It's just a load of crap. Somebody wants to put you out of your job. You have to remember that. Every day you go to work, there's somebody else out there in another business that wants you to not have a job. Because they can move forward, they get promoted, they get more money. Don't ever let up on that. Change is constant. You know, if you're a person who likes the status quo, don't be a leader. Let somebody else lead you. You know, this third one is a little bit difficult. Without urgency, employees will plod along without motivation. And I don't mean to be condescending here, but there are a lot of people who come to work every day to want to collect a paycheck. And if you don't find a way to motivate them, show them an end purpose, they will plod along. Professor Rahman at Harvard put these first words up, and they were shocking to me. You know, what I'm going to teach you is how to get exceptional results out of mediocre people. There's some mediocre people out there? Yeah. And they don't mean to be mediocre. But they're not on the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're not there for work for self-actualization. They're there to get a paycheck. They're there to assemble 20 widgets that day and get to the beer at the tavern that night. If you don't give them a purpose, an understanding of what their mission is, you can't get them motivated. I'm very, very lucky. It's very, very simple for me at FLIR, because everything we do saves somebody's life. And I don't think there's a higher calling for any of us, and for our company. It's really great. We bring people in all the time, talking about how we save a life. We bring in folks from the military, from law enforcement, and share with all the employees what they did to save a life last month or 6 months ago. It gives them the special purpose they need, more than just that paycheck, to drive them forward, to reach a little bit harder. Fourth, engineering takes forever. I can say that because I'm an engineer. My God. Engineers, don't raise your hand. Engineers are amazing what-if generators. You can give them a specification, and within a week they'll tell you 6 other ways that it could be done, or a customer might want to do it. And you got to keep them focused. So this is what the customer told us that they wanted to do. Let's stay on that road. Great ideas. I'll take those 6 new ideas, and in the next release, I'll take those out to them, get their feedback, and then we'll incorporate those. And the enemy of great is the evil of good enough in engineering. Engineers will always find a solution. No, it'll be a 100% solution, but they'll want to spend another month analyzing it, just because maybe there's a 110% solution out there. I'm putting it back, there's a lot of wonderful engineers in there, but I'm just trying to help you for the future in management, and saying that you're going to find some folks out there that, this isn't the perfect solution. It could be even better when good enough gets it to market. And getting things to market is the most important thing. This is really what your customers tell you what you want, not what your people inside tell you what they think that the customer might. So get it to market as fast as you can. Business killers. Anytime you have a lack of direction, there's wasted time. Anytime I tell you, make decisions. A decision is better than waiting and waiting and waiting. And people tell you a lot about teams and group consensus. I think it's better to have a really good idea in a small group, and then explain to the mass, this is why we're going this way, and here's all the compelling reasons we need to go that way. If you wait to get all of engineering on board, 100 engineers on board, and you could take 6 months to get everybody on board with it. But if you get up there and you give them compelling, motivating reasons to move forward as a leader, people will get on board and get moving. And you might make some mistakes along the way. There's a lot of doubting Thomases and a lot of no-nos out there that will tell you, hey, we should be doing different things. That's fine, listen, and course correct. But get going. You've probably heard from other speakers, leadership is not management. Management's all about just plodding through, managing the status quo. To me, leadership is getting people motivated, focusing on the emotions of people. I took courses in group dynamics, a lot of social psychology courses in school. Figuring out what gets people motivated. How do you get your heart and your head into what you're doing? And leadership is all about getting people's heads and hearts in what they're doing. And from a military perspective, if you're a leader and you say, hey, we're going to take that hill because we were told to. How does that compare to, we're going to take that hill because it's a strategic position. If we can get that hill, it's going to open up 4 other sources for us, for supplies, for resources, for food. Do you get it? I mean, you have to take where you're going and apply it to every individual in the organization and get them to feel it here and here. And it's not hard. I'm not telling you to BS them into it. In business, I mean, you can always go to the lowest level and ask us, our community, you need that paycheck. And if we don't do this, the competition is going to put us out of business. Up to, this product is going to be great. It's going to be cool. We're going to grow our market share by 20%. We're all going to get bonuses. This is going to ways to get people motivated. Another tip, now this brutally is more about you than about being mean to somebody else. Brutally honest. You know, everybody in the organization is extremely smart. They know when you've got too many employees on board. They know when sales aren't coming in. I've spent a lot of time with a lot of CEOs that talk out of both sides of their mouth. Oh, things are going to be great. Oh, this is going to be great. Oh, we're going to have to lay off things. You know, be brutally honest. And it's hard. Human nature is, oh, things are fine. Things are fine. We're all going to do great. And then, you need to lay off those 100 people next week. I'm going to be on vacation. Believe it or not, there's a lot of poor leaders. I don't want to say poor managers that do exactly those kinds of things. So don't be a politician. All I know would be really bad right now. Tell them the truth about business. Jack Welch. I thought this guy was Satan. Because our CEO 10 years ago came in and made us rank everybody. And all A players got a good raise, B's got a kind of average raise, all C players got no raises. He demanded that 10% all get 0 raises. This is a Jack Welch rule. Jack Welch, CEO of GE. Boy, how draconian can that be? And luckily when I was at Harvard, I got a chance to talk to Jack, and he said, you know, I couldn't find a way to get managers to really deal with ineffective people. They wanted to just kind of peanut butter raises across, give everybody the same amount, tell everybody it's going to be fine. And he made us, he said, we're in this similar situation, he said, hey, how many of you like to give employee appraisals? And we're looking at each other, like 2 or 3 hands pop up. Yes, none of you should be leaders that didn't raise your hand. Why? The #1 job of a leader is to build a great team. And you can't build a great team if you're not giving good constructive criticism back to your team. It's hard. It's hard to look an employee in the face, and some of those employees even there for a while become friends. And you know about their families and everything else, and you tell them, you know, you didn't really do a good job. You need to step up here. And here's how you can step up. It is the hardest thing from a human nature perspective to do, is to give honest, good criticism. So, think about yourself as a leader. Do you give good, honest, don't be, you suck. But how can you improve your performance? And do it honestly and genuinely. Give them the opportunity. Let's get the right people on the bus. That's more of a Jim Collins thing. But it is your job as a leader to get the right people on the bus. I got some military people here. I always pick on one guy in my organization. It's a military background. I keep on saying, this is not the military. You do not have to do the best with what I'm giving you. If you're going into war, competition is war. Get the best people that you can. If your sniper is the best sniper in the world, get him off the bus and get the best sniper. That is your job as leader. Not only for the benefit of the business, but for the benefit of everybody else in the team. Right? Other people won't perform as well if they're not surrounded by other great people. Why should I work so damn hard if this guy's let do that? Why am I motivated to do it? Get the right people on the bus. Show the geek that I am. Like, I always remind myself in Spock, he needs as many, he needs as few are the one. It is so true in business. And it is so hard as a leader. As you'll find out, this person who is just not performing, is 4 kids, families, been through 2 or 3 jobs. It's tough. It is so tough. It's gut-wrenching as a leader to let those people go. But what I tell my other leaders is, you have another 100 mouths to feed. And you can't let, we'll just keep this person on because it's the right thing to do. If we get behind in competition, we can lose even more jobs. It's a tough, gut-wrenching decision, but as a leader, you have to decide and make those decisions and lead the way forward to get the right people on the bus. Ask yourself if you're the kind of person that can do that. Because you have to do that. Not only for the business, but for all the rest of the people at that company. So, if you have the time, read, this is a speech at West Point in 2009, Solitude and Leadership. Incredible speech. And some of this comes from that, but some of this is original thought. Mostly, we call them leaders, but they manage the status quo. And they really are leaders, like I mentioned before. You have a lot of folks that can take direction, who know how to jump through hoops. I found in college that we spend a lot of time doing exactly what we're told to do and doing as best as we can. But there's very little time for independent, creative thought and your own initiatives to go. You know, you're doing an assignment, and it would actually be more cool to go study this, or this is a cool experiment, but wouldn't that be cool to go do that? Little time for independent thought. So what I have to say is, you know, we don't have enough people that create initiatives on their own. They do a lot of what they're told. They don't have that great way of saying, hey, you know, I think we should go here, and here's why. And doing what a leader does. Right? Let's go here, and here's why we need to go here. Initiatives. You don't have your own initiatives, that you're just listening to your boss, and you're doing exactly what your boss tells you, it'll get you some places, but I tell you, every boss loves when he comes up to us, you know, I think maybe if you did this or this or this. Now, don't go in there and bludgeon them with it, but they like people who have independent thought and create new ideas and how we can make change happen if you've got a good boss. Think for themselves. Like, oh, we all think for ourselves. This is a little bit different. This is more in the, hey, why is it other initiative? What else should we be doing other than what I'm being told to do? Folks that can charge in new directions. A lot of people just don't like, they like their comfort zone. And create visions. Visions are these initiatives of where we're going and what we're going to do. If you're a leader, you buy into your own vision and you find ways to get other people on board. I loved head of Xerox, Ann Mulcahy, said, the job of a leader is to create followership. Followership. She's a fantastic CEO, and she focused on is, how do I get people to follow me? How do I get people motivated to follow me? So her writings are fantastic. So be a visionary leader. Be a great leader. You hate the status quo. You like change. You want to go in a new direction. You're okay with not pleasing everybody. That might sound simple. I run into a lot of managers that don't like to ruffle any feathers. They won't set that initiative. They don't want to go this way because not everybody's on board yet, and I'm afraid that 2 or 3 people are going to get pissed off if we go this direction. I got to spend some more time, you know, making sure they're okay with it. You know, as a leader, you're not going to have everybody like you. Sorry. Have those initiatives. Have great common sense. You know, sometimes I literally pound my head on the desk, and I say, sometimes I don't really think I'm that smart. I just know I'm not that stupid. 30 seconds. I'll tell you, there's crazy things happen in business every single day. I had one guy, this is my favorite Dilbert moment in the last year, come to me and say, I need to buy a laser from this business over here that we just bought. But I went to procurement, and they said it was going to take 2 months because they need to be requalified. I'm like, what? Requalified as a vendor? We just bought them. Because our procedures say that if a business, which by the way, this business was already qualified by us before we bought them, gets purchased by another business, that they need to be requalified. I'm like, but it's us! Well, we bought them! Well, but the procedure says if they're bought by anybody, oh my gosh. Sometimes you're just not that stupid. And you're like, okay, pick up the phone, call the procurement person, like, what's up with this? Well, I guess that's really not a good procedure. What do you mean it's not a good procedure? I mean, it's a terrible procedure. Where's the common sense in that? Buy one tomorrow. Oh, well, then we're going to have to rewrite the procedure. Well, yeah. Okay. Maybe just a little impatience came up at that moment. But, if you're an incredibly passionate person, you'll be a great leader. Because you believe in things, you own them in your heart and in your head, and you can convince other people very easily to move forward with you. So, focus your leadership skills, in my opinion, on how to get that followership through the emotions of tying to the person's heart and to their head. Not just fluff, but realness about competition, about what it means to them, what we can do together, how we can save lives, how we can invent the next iPhone, whatever that cool thing is that you get involved with. Have passion about it and share that passion with others. And you'll be great. Thank you.
Questions. So you'd open up the floor for anyone who has some questions.
You had mentioned that you purchased a company, a vendor, and then we're using them still. How much of the R&D process at Fleer is external purchases of intellectual property, or what sort of do you do everything in-house, or do you have to purchase a company that already has made the product?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Do a whole class on that. So everybody hear the question, how much do we want to do internally versus externally? So Fleer runs with a metric, which is typically we spend about 10% of R&D, revenue, 10% of revenue on R&D, which is quite high. So we always do kind of a make versus buy. Now, if I can go buy a company where somebody comes down and says, well, it's going to take me 100 engineers for 2 years to do that, I can buy it cheaper than that. It's good financial sense. You'll find out P&Ls are really bizarre in that you can manipulate business pretty well. Sometimes you'll be willing to pay more for it because you're using cash or loans. Got finance people in here, and right now loans are really cheap at 3% and float a bond. The cost of buying it versus actually developing it could be cheaper. Even though you're interested, we can do that. Instead of burdening the company with a lot of expense and driving down EPS, we'll take cash or a bond and go buy them and not know the EPS of the business. That's a pretty long, advanced financial stuff that you really do a class on. It's really boring. But it's fascinating. I hope that answers your question. Did everybody get a chance to look at the camera? Did it make it all around? Did it not leave? Any other questions? Yeah.
You work here now? You still in the area?
Are you in DC meeting with government officials, or what is your travel schedule like?
It's luckily, let me see, the shoulder surgery I've been home for 9 days. It's the longest time I've been home in 12 years. Home. So I travel about 50% of the time. My wife will tell you more, but I mark it on the calendar. And the Portland operation is headquarters, so I spend a lot of time here, but government systems, I didn't talk about the location. We have 22 locations all around the world. The majority of them are in the U.S., and so I'm always on the road. And trade shows, customer visits are probably my most valuable part of the job, although I engage in engineering meetings and lots of other things that scares the heck out of me. I still love the technology, so I still like to engage at all of those things. It's a lot of travel. Spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I was supposed to be in India, supposed to be for Singapore. The day after, I busted up my shoulder to India. But it comes. I would say that the higher and higher you climb in the organization, the more and more you're going to have to be on the road. It's not a sedentary job. You have to be out front of customers. I have an office in Bristol City, about 6 blocks away from the Pentagon. So I'm very familiar with south back and forth to Dallas. Typically in DC, it's typically monthly or every other month. Certainly once a quarter. Some of it. By the way, do your travel in your 20s and 30s before you get a family. After you get a family is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. You miss basketball games and football games and spelling bees. You just can't replace those moments with your family, your children. You miss birthdays and anniversaries, and you look at CEOs and they get paid an awful lot. If you really know how much of their life they've given up for the business, I sometimes wonder if it's worth it. I really do. Maybe some people love their job more than they love their families and their children, but certainly one of my family children more, and sometimes the money's just not worth it. So find balance in your life as you grow in your career, and don't lose sight of family. That is critical. Now my son is 15, and I've been dragging him to London and Paris for the air shows. He's digging that. So, jobs to do. So there's some benefits of that. 10 years of air shows without me. That was 13 when I got taken maybe 5. It was still find balance in everything you do. So work hard where you're going to get ahead.
I'm wondering, since the products from Raytheon and Lockheed are basically pre-subsidized by the government, how do you compete for the government contracts if they've already basically secured that business? And is their perception of quality in their products because they're paying more for them?
Yeah, very good question. We have this problem, you probably aren't old enough to know about, when the computer world started up. Nobody got fired for buying IBM. Everybody bought IBM computers. Now, nobody gets fired in the military for buying Raytheon, Lockheed, Boeing. Who's FLIR? So we spent a lot of time advertising with FLIRs in Washington, D.C., and a lot of articles to try to raise our profile. But the other problem is if the government spends all this money developing a product, like, well, this is really cool, and now we want to go into production, it's really hard to get them to do an open competition at that point. Luckily, now there's acquisition reform that's coming about saying, hold on a second, even though we've spent all this money developing it before we decide to give the production order, let's have an open competition to see if anybody else has done this in another because, oh, by the way, the Marine Corps will pay $20 million for something to be developed, and the Air Force will spend $20 million to develop the same thing, but it has, you know, a red stripe on it versus a green stripe. I'm not that far off. I mean, when you look at the Predator version of the, you know, the Army versus the Air Force, it's really not that. It's the same basic plane. It's UAV. Predator is, you always see in all these movies. You know, every force has their own version of that, but they're not that far off. So, bottom line is we try and force competition. So we know something's getting ready for an LRIP, limited rate initial production order. We'll get in there in the Pentagon. I'll go in and say, look, I want to show you something here that can do the same thing for less money, same kind of capability, and try to get them to go to a full and open competition. There's still a lot. There is no fair competition in our military. There's still a lot of predisposed biases and a lot of favorites and that thing going on. But we get in there and sometimes, you know, we can get placed. And more people know about us. More and more things we disrupt. So we're $700 million. Seems like a lot of money, but compared to Raytheon, who's huge billions of dollars, you know, we can continue to eat away market share by picking up programs here and there. And you know, I can tell you, our systems that fly in theater, that do laser designation systems for Hellfire missiles, which is what is on the Predator. Our systems, Raytheon sells theirs for $1.3 million. We sell our system for $800,000, and their documented MTBF, mean time between failure, is less than half of ours. So it's got a lot of people turning their heads. So I tell you, quality is not something that the big DoD contractors care about. They do not, and I can tell you for the future taxpayers, but those companies live off of logistics. They live off of fixing things. They love the tail. Honest to God, I had somebody from Lockheed, once we sold that laser designation system, come to me and said, let me show you how to make 3 times the purchase price. I will show you how to screw government for 3 times the purchase price for the next 5 years in logistics and maintenance. Do not work on quality, and we will make 3 times. I think we can't do that. It's not how I was raised. It's the high-tech world that I came from. I came from a high-tech world where price should drop in half, and horsepower should double. Moore's Law, you know, every 5 years. That's what it should be. That's the way the military should hold expectations, but they don't. They don't. It's really sad. But we get a few advocates in the military that see what we can do for them, and we're serving terms of next. We've turned $700 million worth of heads